Hi Gerardo. Thank you so much for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you for doing this. I think this is very important work, and I hope future generations will learn a lot from this. Well, I live in northern Mexico, a town called Monterrey. It's like this. We like to say it's the second largest city in Mexico. Folks from Guadalajara say it's the third, so we have a little bit of a fight over that. But yeah, Mexico City is way bigger than both of us combined. So there's no match there. I'm very close to the U.S. border. I went to school at a local university, but it's the first AVID accredited university. So I've been able to, I did a master's degree in the U.S., came back, and I've been able to fit right in the system. So I've been to Houston. I've been to the Johnson Space Center. So I am a bit of a space fan, but I wasn't around for the moon landing. So I'm really excited about this whole Artemis thing. And in fact, I'm hoping to take my kids to Cape Canaveral whenever the big day comes. Hope to get tickets. You know what I mean? But we'll see. It's really it will be really exciting. I've read about all the things that it did for that generation. So I'm really just very excited to for the things that are coming, not only for me but my kids and their kids going forward. So yeah, I think it would have been interesting to um, record what people think would come after the first lunar landings, right? So doing this and having the opportunity to participate, I really jumped right in. And we're gonna do this on Saturday, and I have to confess, I was gonna cheat. I was gonna brush up on my history and stuff, but other than the lunar landing date, I don't know many stats by heart. But I think it's better because it's more natural and more realistic than having had time to prepare. So I'm glad that we jumped the gun and did it today instead of Saturday. So thank you very much for doing this.
It sounds like you're pretty excited about us returning to the moon and our future in space. Is Do you find that common among the people that you interact with, like your family, your colleagues, your neighbors? Are you kind of unique like that?
Um, it's a good question. I don't know if it rubs off because I am very excited. So, I would say a lot of people around, of course, my kids, my wife, and everyone. But, my friends, I have very nerdy friends, so I think it fits with the mold, right? But yeah, I mean, I think it rubs off. People sometimes people. I love when people ask like, "Why are you so excited about it? Like, what's in it for you?" And I'm like, you know, uh, I don't, I'm a fan, and I don't even know how our life would be different because I'm thinking, without the space program, we don't have things like GPS or solar panels or I'm an electronics engineer, so even the CMOS sensor in the cameras in the first smartphone cameras and webcams and the GoPro, it's a metal oxide semiconductor that was developed because of the space program. I learned that in school. So I think throughout my life, I had all these little bits of information that, oh, this came as a consequence of us going into space, right? Like when I was studying engineering and learning all about CMOS, I learned that. And even more mundane things, I'm not sure if it's uh, urban legend or what, but things like aluminum foil or my temper foam in my pillow, things like that. I think those are also things that came from space. And the things that excites me the most is that we don't know what we don't know, right? We won't know until we have folks on the ground. I'm a nerd. I'm a tech enthusiast. A lot of gadgets and stuff, but it's not the same to send a robot, right, to space, a robotic probe. I think it's the most efficient and safe way to do it. But until you have boots on the ground, you really don't have the human element that, when you have to solve problems, when you have to overcome things and develop things for that purpose. And then you come back to Earth with those things and you start finding, may even drive up new industries that we cannot even imagine. I mean, think about it. 50 years ago, 30 years ago, we wouldn't have expected to have folks having a job doing, I don't know, things like HTML coding these days, right? It's like, or web design, those things we couldn't have imagined that 50 years ago. So that's the kind of things that I'm excited about. The things that I cannot even imagine that we are gonna have to do for us to be able to survive in a such a difficult environment like the moon, right? And folks are excited about Mars, and I get it, and I hope my grandsons or my grandkids will get to see that, right? But it's very far away, right? And there's a lot. So I don't think we are. I think the moon is a good test bed for that, and I think it's the next logical step. I think probably the moon would be $1 billion and Mars would be $1 trillion. So it's an order of magnitude to get there. I think I just off the top of my head, I think so. I think we should definitely do it. I was hoping for that in 2019, for the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, but that the things are get delayed and all of that. But yeah, I mean that's basically my excitement. I'm a tech enthusiast, and I know even if I'm an engineer and I'm more of a nerd myself, but I'm not a scientist. I don't do the scientific discoveries, but thanks to those scientific discoveries, we get to have the things we have today. And I'm really hoping that going to the moon will turbocharge and speed up that process. So hopefully in my lifetime, I'll get to see things that I can't even dream of today. So that, and for my kids or grandkids, that's going to be like for us, having internet or doing this we're doing right now, that anyone can have something in their pocket and they can talk to somebody else anywhere else on the planet and just hang out. Those are things that years ago we wouldn't have imagined. So I'm really excited about what the future holds, and I know this is a catalyst for us to get there.
I talked to a lot of people, at the coffee shop, at the store, at the airport, and I asked them, do you know that we're going to the moon? And most of them say no, they have no idea. I was wondering if that is sort of been your experience as well, or if maybe you feel like people are more familiar with it.
Yeah, again, this is long in the making. I think we're gonna be, oh gosh, I think the first the first orbit is gonna be what, 2024, I think.
Yes, that's right.
So I mean, we're already 5 years late, right? And things, I mean, look at James Webb, right? We've been talking about James Webb Space Telescope for, I even lost count. At least I know about for like 10 years, right? It's always been delayed and over budget, and everybody was very happy when it finally launched. But we're still getting the first images, and still, so it's gonna take a while. These things take a while, right? It's rocket science in the end, right? So that's why I'm wearing my shirt, by the way. There.
Oh, it's not rocket science.
I wanted it just for you. Yeah. So it is rocket science in this case, right? So it's better to be late than sorry, right? So it's I think I think also that's why people, God, let me put it this way. It's very difficult to say with precision, right? We're going to the moon on this date, by this year. Things can have, just with this launch, we had to scrub and all of that. And that's normal, but among scientists and engineers, I always love it when they interview scientists and they ask, like, do you think this is going to happen? And they say, well, it's highly likely, right? They don't say yes or no, true or false. They say highly likely because that's the scientific answer to things, right? But folks take that. Normal folks in the coffee shop may take that, well, it may happen or may not. No, if they say highly likely, or there's a very high probability of that happening, and that's their way of saying you're damn right. But they're not gonna say that because of their training. So space is hard, and things have gone wrong, with Challenger and what was the name of the
Columbia
and all of that. So things can go wrong real fast. So, and the fire in the what was it, the capsule, the Apollo
1.
One. So things can go wrong and have gone wrong. So you can just wing it and try to make a deadline. Like, I'm also in software these days, and we sometimes ship things and then fix them that later. You can do that with software, with an accounting or not an accounting, an invoicing thing, that your invoice is going to be printed a little bit to the left. That's fine. You can fix that in post when you're going to space, right? So I think probably that's why folks sort of lose interest, because they're like, oh, we're going, but then we weren't, and it was scrubbed, and it was delayed. So everybody's like, I think if you ask folks, do you think we're going back to the moon at some point? They're going to say yes. If you say maybe in the next decade, yes. But they're not really in the know about, is it next year or this year or in 3 years or in 2 years. And frankly, you and I cannot even assure that's going to be the case, right? Maybe it's going to be 5 years. Maybe it's going to be 3 years. We hope it's going to be more like 3 years, but things can happen, and just seeing what's going on with Ukraine and all of that right now, I'm worried, right, that other priorities may force us to delay things or focus on other things. So as a world, right, not only as a space program. So yeah, I think that's good. But I usually, when I talk to people, and again, I don't know if it rubs off sort of the excitement, or they just don't want to argue with a space nerd or space fan. But yeah, once people stop to think about these things, they usually like, yeah, you're right, it's pretty good. Because I had the discussion, like, why go to space if we have so many troubles here on Earth? And it's like, well, by going to space, we make life on Earth better, right? So I think I'm really happy that folks like NASA are taking this up, and other, all the private companies these days as well, because they lift all the boats, right? So that's really key. And I think once folks get a chance to voice their concerns or their questions, they tend to be more enthusiastic about it than they were before. So again, kudos to you for doing this. I think this raises awareness, and it's a good way to document the sentiment right now, before on the eve, if you will, of the Artemis launch. So in the long range of things, you can say the eve, because we're almost there, right? We're almost there. So thank you for doing this again.
Where do you see humanity going in 200 years? Do you think we have people living on the moon, on Mars, on the moons of Jupiter, moons of Saturn? I mean, like, how far have we gotten in 200 years?
I hope, I think, and I hope that we'll have stepstones, right? So we can go to the moon the next decade, maybe go to Mars in the next couple of decades or 3 decades, maybe from then. So I think, I think a mission to, let's say, Europa, right, or one of the, well, Europa is probably not, well, but let's say Europa, one of the moons of Jupiter, would probably have a lot of steps in the way, right? It's not just from here to there, because of fuel, because of all the supplies you have to take. So I'm hoping, and if you think about it, we now have with the Starlink, and I hope this will be around for many years, or things like this. We have Starlink is the global internet service. So now we have. I just installed one antenna now earlier today. You get about the same bandwidth that you get from your home fiber optic cable from an antenna that automatically positions yourself. So I'm thinking, well, now we have a global, or almost global, internet access. Eventually, we're gonna have the same thing on the moon, right? So we're gonna be able. I don't know. We're gonna be able to do this because of the delay. Maybe with a bit of delay, but we're gonna be able to send messages back and forth and browse the web from the moon. And from here, that starts opening up other possibilities that we cannot foresee. So I do think in 200 years, I would hope we would at least have those stepstones in the moon and Mars. I don't know what would be the next one, because distances get pretty big. I don't know, maybe something in between, or some sort of a space station around another planet. That would be awesome. Or moon. But we have a lot of obstacles. But I don't think we're gonna go beyond the solar system in 200 years. So, but I hope we will. I hope going to um, the outer planets, or at least the gas giants, would be as feasible as it is today to go to the space station, maybe, or to the moon, right? That we're gonna be on the verge of it. But yeah, I think it's not. We're not gonna go to the stars, at least not in person. We're probably gonna send robotic probes and things like. I remember what are these mini satellites, Starshot, or
Oh yeah, yeah, Project Starshot, where they're like
yeah,
seeing
yeah.
like
So that
little credit card sized satellites.
satellite and with the light sail and all of that. So that sounds promising, and things like that sound promising. And so I think those things could eventually reach the stars, particularly if we give them some push with lasers from Earth, or the moon. Probably would be easier to do it from the moon. Less interference from the atmosphere and all of that. But yeah, I think humans going beyond I think we're even going to things where places like Pluto would be challenging even in 200 years. I think. Hope I'm wrong. But yeah, so at least I hope that we will master the solar system by then. Again, not everyone would go probably, but at least the astronauts would be able to get there, and we could start thinking and toying with the idea of going to the farther, maybe to the closest star. And you see that in the science fiction, all the long-term multi-generational star travel. I think we may be closer to that in 200 years. We have probably have more technologies and more advances in science and engineering that will at least we will be able to have a plan. But again, if we're talking $1 billion to the moon, $1 trillion to Mars, I don't know what's next. A quintillion dollars to the next, step. So it's just the orders of magnitude of investment and the risk and all of that. It becomes increasingly difficult. But yeah, I think we're going to be sending robotic probes everywhere in 200 years. But humans, I think our solar system is really big, so it's gonna take a long while for us to. I mean, the Voyager probes, what they're just leaving like influence of the sun at this. They're just entering the interstellar medium after what 50 years or
I
something. So
think longer than that, 50,
yeah,
60,
yep,
60
yep.
years.
So it's not easy to get that far. So, but again, I hope that in 200 years we'll at least have we're going to be closer. Just as now we can think about going to Mars and beyond. Hopefully, in 200 years, we will be thinking about going outside the solar system and have a plan and the technologies, and just it's going to be a matter probably of figuring out the next step and the investment that would come, because that I don't think any government alone or private company alone would be able to fund something as challenging as going beyond the influence of the sun. So we'll see. But I'm pretty confident that we should master our backyard, right, so to speak, in the solar system. And there are many things that we haven't discovered yet that probably will help us shape the future generations because of all the problems that need to be solved to get there. So neat stuff coming our way.
Well, if you had an opportunity to go to space, would you?
Define space.
Um, okay, space being when you can no longer control a craft using aerodynamic
Sure. Okay. So
forces.
about the Karman line or
Yeah.
something about yeah. I mean, I would do it like the billionaires are doing it these days, right? So or probably something like the space station. Yeah, but I wouldn't sign up to be the first on the moon or the first in Mars, right? I think that takes a lot of training and a lot of you want to send the best and the brightest, right? And I don't consider myself the best and the brightest, so I would probably go like once they land there and they have like a base and all the adventurous folks have gone. I would definitely go. But I mean, sure, in the near future, if there's something like something to go up like these guys are doing, Jeff Bezos and Branson and all of those guys. I mean that seems something that sounds like something that I would be willing and happy to do. Particularly if it's something like a raffle or something that you win, because I wouldn't have the cash to make it happen. But again, if the price goes down or eventually becomes more feasible, yeah, sure. But going out. So people have asked me, "Would you go to Mars?" Right? And I'm like, no, there's no air in Mars. So something goes wrong, and that's it. So but yeah, I mean, I think we are humanity as humanity. We are as humans. We are always exploring, and I would go behind the explorers. Once when there's a colony established that I can visit, I would gladly sign up to do that. But for now, I'm happy with just seeing the edge of space, if you will. That would be nice.
I'd like to probe a little bit more into that. Elon Musk talks about having a million-person city on Mars by 2050. Um, at what point would you consider like immigrating to Mars? Would it be after 100 people are there, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 100,000 people? I mean, like, what number of people would have to be there where you're like, yeah, I'm ready?
Um, it's not that much about the people. I think it's more about um, the travel and destination. So if boarding a plane was less safe than driving a car, I think less people would do it, right? We board the planes that because they're safe. So and even again, space is hard. Spacecrafts are still challenging. So until we mastered that, I think I will have to see like 1,000 trips of these reusable rockets carrying people back and forth, and whatever the number is, right? And there's been zero incidents. There's been 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and zero incidents. It's pretty reliable, right? So that will be the first, and then what's there, right? So do you have all these systems, all this infrastructure in place to withstand whatever nature throws at you, whatever space throws at you? And third, how much it costs, right? Because if I have to sell one kidney to go there, I would probably, or other things, I think it would be challenging. So those are the three things that I would look into. First, the reliability of the spacecraft that will take you there. Two, the infrastructure on the where you're landing. And three, what's the deal? If it is about, we need experts, and you have an expertise that we can use, and it will pay you, or at least you will have some economic benefit. At least you won't have to pay for the travel or whatever, of course. But I think those are the three things that I would look into, no matter if I'm person 3,000, 5,000, 50,000, or 1 million. It's more about how reliable is the whole thing, right? Before, is there Wi-Fi there, right? So I mean, I say it jokingly, but yeah, I mean, folks, it's funny because you talk to folks and about going even here on Earth, to exotic locations, and they ask like, is there Wi-Fi there? It's like, is there good food, right? It's like, yeah, I mean, that's a consideration anywhere you go, right? We would be liars if we said we don't care about those amenities. So yeah, I think it's more complex than just how many people have been there. It's like, okay, what's in there that will make my trip safe and enjoyable, right?
I like to take that 200-year question and turn it around the other direction. So I've tried to imagine yourself as a high schooler 200 years from now in history class, writing a paper about the 2020s. What do you hope will be worth remembering about this decade in 200 years?
Oh God. About this decade, so you're talking the last few years, the last decade.
And also, you could kind of, I mean, we're only 2 years into the decade, so you have 8 imaginary years. You could imagine anything that you want.
Oh, so you're talking about 2020s. Yeah, all right,
The
all right.
2020s, yeah.
So of course, I think the lunar landing, I think the first woman and the first person of color on the moon, that should be a watershed moment, right? And honestly, even today I see things on Twitter and then the media and the news and all that I'm like, how come we're still so far behind? In racial equity, social equity, gender equity, all of those things. It's unbelievable, and but yeah, I think that should be like the highlight. I think that would be for this decade what the moon landing was for the late 60s, right? So that I think that should be, and hopefully, I hope that they also write how we averted World War III, and disarmament, and getting rid of all the nukes and all of that. I mean that I hope that's the case. But yeah, I think those two things are top of mind. I think are should be the highlights of this decade. Hopefully, yeah.
I feel like we made a lot of progress with gender equity and maybe racial equity too. Um, and I mean, just and like I guess it was what 1920 women got the right to vote, something like in the United States at least. I know there's places in the world where it's still not quite there yet, but I mean, I look around NASA, and like my boss's boss is a lady, and like I think almost nearly half of like the flight directors are women. Uh, a significant part of the astronauts are women. So, I mean, it
But
feels like it's improving a little bit.
it is, but if you look around the world, you see that the girls in Iran are sort of fighting for being able to count pretty much as persons, and that's awful. And just a couple days ago, I was reading on Twitter about this guy who was boarding off a plane, and there was he's black. There was another lady of color next to him, and a white woman in front of them. This was like 2 days ago in a United flight or something. Um, and they bumped into each other, the two ladies, and the white lady turns to the black lady and calls her the N word. You know, in October 2022. That's and you know how quick she was to wield that weapon. That to me is the fact that we still see those things around the world, not single like any location in the world, but just around the world. Girls in Iran fighting for their rights, basic human rights, and this lady on an airplane doing these things. To me, that's a little bit of a sign that we have a long way to. And I hope that someone doing a high school student doing a paper on this would say, they were savages back there. They used to do this and that. Because I still I think we made a lot of progress, we made good progress, but I think we're not. It's a bit like saying we are energy wise or climate change, we're good. We're not yet. I mean, we're better than we were 50 years ago. We have clean water, clean air, most places, and we made a lot of progress, but we are not done yet. So that's going to be, I think, that if we have those advances this decade, I think those are going to be watershed moments that are going to be written about by high schoolers in the future. So sorry, high schoolers. Yeah.
And they'll be wondering what's social equity. I don't get it.
Yeah, well, what do you mean?
What do you
Right.
mean?
It's like, again, I'm not from the US, so I'm not steeped in the culture, but at some point I heard something or I read something about Black people sort of being like 3/4 or 1/3 or two. I don't know what fraction, but what counting
it's actually in the Constitution.
Right.
It actually, and I don't think it actually says Black people. It says slaves, but only
Slaves,
Black people were slaves.
Right.
So I think there's that.
So you learn those things and you go like, ooh. So I hope that's gonna be the reaction in the future when they look at these issues we have these days, like, ooh, social equity, what? Yep.
I know. It's really embarrassing to have that in such an important document.
Exactly. And I was talking about we were discussing as neighbors. I mean I don't know what would be the term we we all own the common ground. So I think you guys call it home ownership association or something like that, homeowners association. So we were discussing things, and the people started saying, well, if you pay your dues, you're gonna have a right. If you don't pay your dues, you're gonna have half the vote. And I was like, and you're not 3/4. No, I don't like that fractional people. You have the right or not, right? And we're all equal here. I don't want to see folks having double votes or half the votes or 3/4 of the vote. that's just wrong, right? So let's not. And people have gone there in the past. Let's not do the same. So yeah, I mean, we're gonna come a long way, but still, you see those little things that I hope will be gone for good, in the future, hopefully.
Hopefully. Well, those were the questions I had. I know we covered a lot of topics. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
Um, just a couple of things. I hope there will be things, by going to the moon that we can't, that are gonna be small but meaningful. Like there was an Apollo mission, I think Apollo 8, that they didn't land on the moon, but they did take the photo of Earth, right? And I think that alone did a lot. So I don't know. These days it's gonna be a selfie on the moon or something like that. But I'm curious to see what what that's gonna. Well, these days would be TikTok on the moon or something like that.
Mm.
If TikTok's still around in the future, I think that would be interesting. Those little things that we didn't think about a lot back then, probably, but they had a huge impact. Seeing the Earth from that perspective. Um, and I'm also, I've always wanted to buy a 3D printer, but I think I don't know. I think it's still too much of a hassle, and you can't really do a lot of things unless you have a lot of money to spend, right? But I think by going to the moon and other places, we're gonna need to print stuff on demand. Um, so I'm hoping that there will be some advances in that area, because I mean I haven't had a 3D printer machine. I have seen, I've been investigating prices and feeds and all that. They're really nice, but I'm like, what am I gonna do? You can't do anything you want. It makes sense if you are in a lab or if you're building stuff or whatever, but there's not a case for a thinker to have it a lot these days, I think. And I'm hoping that that would be an exponential thing, because imagine if you can print literally anything you want. If you could print a keyboard, just like you can print documents these days, you could print any object. I mean, that would be without having to know a lot of design stuff, 3D stuff, and material science. I think that's going to be huge, right? And I don't know, maybe even again commercial feasibility. Maybe we can even see whole industries coming up, and buy the Amazon machine, and instead of having the things delivered to you, we'll print it on your home, right? So those things really excite me, and I hope that by doing this, by exploring these frontiers in space, we'll probably make life better here at home, and create things we can't even imagine these days. So that really that was the whole overarching thing that I was thinking about when I signed up for this, and I'm curious. I'm really happy that someone is gonna be able to look at this in the future and see, oh yeah, you nailed it, buddy, or no, you weren't even close. Right now, we just think about it, and it appears. So we don't know, right? But yeah, it's really neat stuff, and it's a great time to be alive, I think.
It is. Well, I definitely appreciate your time, and hope you have a good rest of your night, and look forward to staying in touch online.
Same here. Thank you, Nathan, and thank you for doing this really important work.
Thank you again. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye bye.